Yeah, it's live. It's indicating live.
Okay. Hi, everyone. We are sorry for that technical hitch. No, technology sometimes can be good, but sometimes can be very challenging. And we are back with Leon and his panel his panel. And Leon, over to you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Jennifer. A very good evening or good morning to wherever you're watching from around the world. My name is Leon Ludigu, journalist. And every Saturday, we take a step back as journalists, as news consumers, and just have a discussion with a panel of experts in their various fields from around the world, what I like to call as a global panel, so that we are able to address and learn from each other and share on our observations and take notes and lessons with regards to the coverage of COVID-19. So with me today is the ladies and gentlemen from various parts of the world. And before I introduce them, I just wish to remind you that the media has been at every step covering COVID-19, and it has been a journey of multiple stories, incessant headlines, and continuous updates, as I indicated earlier. So whether you are watching us from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, feel welcome. You can also follow Mtoto News at Mtoto News and at Leon Lidigu, and tag all the panelists. If you check our social media, you'll find the handles to all the panelists. For any questions, also we shall be taking questions. So because I'm a gentleman, let me start with the ladies on the panel. And with the ladies, let me start with Madam Ruchika. Are you there, Madam Ruchika?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello. Hi, Leon, I'm online, yeah.
Yes. Kindly introduce yourself to us.
Okay. So I'm Ruchika Jain from India, and I'm freelance journalist and content creator on my channel, Firefly Do. So it's more about the travel, food, and lifestyle vlogging content. So yes, that is it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. We move next is Mwanaisha, Madam Mwanaisha Chizuga. Jennifer, is Madam Mwanaisha with us?
She is, but we can't hear her. Mwanaisha, we can't hear you.
Okay. As you sort her out, let's go to Mr. Mathore. Kindly introduce yourself. Yes, Rahul sir, introduce yourself.
Hi, hello, Leon. Hi, I'm Rahul Rathod. I'm from India. I'm assistant professor in Pacific University, Udaipur, Rajasthan. And I teach mostly photojournalism and magazine journalism to the student of the journalism students.
Okay, thank you so much. Next on our panel, we have Mr. Abbas. Mr. Abbas, kindly introduce yourself.
Hi, sir. Thank you so much for hosting me. My name is Abbas Mpindi. I am from Uganda. I run an organization called Media Challenge Initiative. We are youth-driven, not-for-profit, building the next generation of journalists. So I work with young journalists, and that's what keeps me awake at night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We move to Mr. Smith.
Yes, it's morning here. I'll say good morning. I'll say good afternoon to the rest of you. I'm Martin Smith. I am a documentary producer for public television in the United States. I have worked with PBS Frontline, the investigative documentary series, since its beginning in 1983, producing documentaries on various subjects around the world, long-form television, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate you very much. Jennifer, kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer. I am founder and CEO and our work is to make children voices heard, but also provide platforms like this where, as journalists, we can be able to engage on how we can, what kind of stories, impact stories that you can be able to provide, especially at a time as this, where the world is facing this a similar.
Okay, okay. I think there's a slight problem with the internet there, but now let's start from a very interesting aspect. Many times throughout when COVID-19 started, we've been hearing stories, we've been seeing stories, we've been watching stories all over on COVID-19 coverage. So my first question to you as a panel will be, how do you feel that media has covered with regards to the COVID-19 pandemic? What is your reaction so far from where you sit? Has media done a good job? Has it done a bad job? What's your take, Ruchika?
Yeah, so if I talk about India, that media is really doing a good job. Before the time, they have actually, the news has been telecasted that we have to aware a lot. And that is why people are really very aware just before anything bad happened or some numbers are increased. Just because of that, the India is really on not at that bad condition, as we can see that Indian media is publishing so many things that COVID-19 is happening. So you have to be in lockdown, and as our government also have taken the good step in this. So yeah, the media played a really amazing job, and they have aware like anything to us, and it's really important for any countries. It can be the possibility that yeah, we are suffering a lot in terms of economic. In terms of economy, and we are suffering a lot health wise, but still the media is doing good job, and yeah, we are very satisfied with the media right now.
Your
Media has, do you feel media has done a good job in covering COVID-19, Mr. Abbas? Mr. Abbas, are you with us?
Yes, yes, yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
I want to say that, yes, I want to say that the media has done an incredible job covering COVID-19. There is still lessons to learn. There is still areas to improve, but honestly, overall, we've done an incredible job worldwide, even in our countries here in Uganda. What we need to understand is that COVID in itself is COVID-19 is a new pandemic. No one anticipated, no one planned for it. So it's an invisible story that we didn't know how to cover it. You rely on expert information. So for journalists to go above and beyond to provide information, and I think it's not strange to say that without journalism right now, a lot more people would be dead, because we're getting all the information that we can. We're relying on TV, we're relying on online journalists, and that is important for us to reflect on and appreciate the role of journalists as essential service providers. And it's a hard subject in terms of providing numbers, but overall for me, it's thumbs up for journalists. There are areas that need to be improved, which we'll discuss later. But for your first question, I think it's a good job. It's a job well done.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a very hard question because it's hard to generalize. There's so many different kinds of journalists operating right now. In the United States, you can put together you can curate your own news from various sources and be well informed, but there's a lot of misinformation because we have a situation in the States where a lot of coverage has been politicized. We have cable outlets that are taking a very Trump view of things and defending him at all costs, even when he's embarrassing his scientific advisors, his medical advisors. And there's other people that are playing a kind of a gotcha game, trying to embarrass the president for their own political reasons on the other side of the spectrum. So I agree with Mpindi that journalism in general is playing a vital role here, and that there would be more people dead if it wasn't for information getting out there. But I think it's a challenge for many citizens to be able to maneuver their way through the thicket of misinformation, of politicized content, and put together or curate a robust, solid diet of good news. So very hard to generalize. I mean, certainly there are many journalists doing a very good job. I think there's journalists who are not. And one thing I'd like to talk about too is the fact that in many places governments are making it very hard for journalists to operate. So that's the other side of the question. We can get to that.
Thank you so much. Mr. Raul?
Yes, yeah, but I think we are not just fighting with the epidemic, we are also fighting with the infodemic. So media's role is to inform, to aware people. But some fake news are spreading very fast in India, and it is very dangerous, more than virus. It's fake news. So this is the media sense of responsibility we have to check. If I talk about India's coverage stories in news, I see they have not done justice to the migrant workers in India. They said they are leaving the cities, they are moving to their villages. Where will they go? They have to go their villages. If you are not providing food facilities, you are and they don't have they don't have food for their children, so they have to go their villages. So I think related to migrant workers stories, media is not doing good work in India.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Manisha, are you with us? I don't think Manisha is with us yet. Now, which brings me to a very interesting discussion that perhaps I've been seeing even in some platforms I am in. Now, as we are getting to know the justice aspect of media, doing justice to stories, are these stories generating solutions, in your view, Dr. Raul?
Yeah, it is generating. Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Can I?
Okay. Yes. Yes, Ruchika.
So, yes, I mean, it is creating a big difference. Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I'm thinking that media is creating a big change, because this is what it is, a medium between a people and the people who are doing a lot of social work. If we talk about India, media is giving that story that, okay, these people are not having house, not having food facilities, but the people who are in social work, they are helping them. Those who are not having house, those who are not having food for they are laborers and they don't have food, and the people who can give, who are in social work, they are helping like them anything. So that is the media, that is the power of media, that they are giving the the example that yes, here there are some problems. So if media doesn't show this, then who will going to help them? So yeah, it's really very big power of media, I guess.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Smith, I wish to ask you something. Do you believe that there's a difference between breaking news and developing stories? There's been a lot of debate online and in some of the social media groups where journalists are on the difference between breaking news and a developing story. The question is, when does a news item stop being breaking? Because every story in this COVID-19 series is a breaking story. So how do we differentiate as journalists?
Right, I think that's a good question, but I think even before the COVID-19 story. Breaking news was a kind of constant feature on cable television news outlets. And it was driven not by somebody considering carefully what was breaking and what was not, but by commercial considerations, so that somebody walking past a television set and would see breaking news would pay attention. I don't think that, I think the term has become pretty meaningless over the last several years because it's overused, and it's used, as I say, to get your attention rather than to really give you something that's breaking. I often see breaking news and wonder what's breaking about it. I think with COVID-19, it's more or less a developing story all the time. I'm not sure how much is truly breaking. I think the term is, again, just overused and has become meaningless.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this will go to Mr. Abbas. In your analysis and view, what are some of the challenges that journalists are facing with regards to covering COVID-19?
Thank you. I think one of the biggest challenges is that it's an area which is really scientific, and we know that especially here in East Africa, most of the journalists won't have a health background or a scientific background to be able to understand some of the terminologies that are being used by scientists. And that makes it really hard to report about, which is why we are calling upon, any media development organizations to provide extra trainings, or even newsrooms to be able to have an extra training. It's good that, different organizations have come out to do that, but that's one of the biggest challenges. I think the other now is the restrictions that are coming to hurt press freedom, because you see journalists in some countries are being arrested because of they are in the line of duty covering and saving people in their own way. So that's, at this moment in time, we wouldn't really be expecting journalists to be arrested, because the story that they're doing is the story that everyone, needs to hear, including the people that are arresting them. So that's also another big challenge that we need to be able to amplify and voice out and fight against, because we should not be fighting a virus, but at the same time being arrested as journalists. That is not something that I can really understand. So for me, those are very key challenges that journalists are facing, but also I think that in some of the developing countries now, you have a lot of journalists that were doing freelancing. Now they can't do that because they are not able to move out of their lockdowns. There's so much you can do in your house and reach out to different sources, but if you're not moving, then it becomes really tricky for journalists to be able to do their work, because not all of them will have access or passes that will allow them to travel or to drive a car or to drive a motorcycle. So if you can't move, you can't report some of the stories that you need. You can't go to. So that's also another challenge, but also you're looking at their livelihoods. I think that a lot of aid interventions are targeting, the other people in the population. But a lot of journalists are losing their jobs. A lot of journalists will not have food in a few months to come, because maybe they've used all the savings. And that makes it very important for us to start thinking about the life of a journalist in this pandemic as an individual, not as a journalist, but as a human being, because if they have lost their work, if they are not earning anything, then it means they are also going to starve. And we've seen, like here in Uganda, government is providing food to some of the people in the urban centers. And that's a very good strike that we've made. But we also know that there are many journalists who might need that help, especially community journalists who earn very little money upcountry in other communities that are not in urban centers. So those would be my points that I could share with you right now regarding challenges facing journalists.
Leon, your microphone is on.
Journalists are safe. Yes?
Your microphone was off. Say again.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I was asking, I beg your pardon. Do you actually believe that, or from your observation, Mr. Abbas, do you think that media houses and media house owners are actually investing to keep journalists who are doing these stories safe? Because we have been seeing journalists at press conferences at the forefront of covering stories when we are told that the quarantine area, place B, something has happened there. We are the first ones to rush to the scene. So are we keeping the precautions?
I think that it varies from one media house to another. There are media houses that have been able to safeguard their journalists and provide protective gears. But there are others that are either logistically not able to do it, or they are not, they don't have the DNA or the protection DNA to ensure that their journalists are safe. But I think also it gets back to even the journalists themselves. There are people who have the gears. They may not be able to use them once they get into they're out in the field. So for me, I know that for sure media houses are also struggling. They were struggling before COVID-19 came financially. This is an extra cost, even at this time when they have to be out there covering stories, because we have seen that it's most likely they're also struggling financially right now because of reduction in adverts and people are moving all their adverts on the web. So this is something that they didn't plan for, so it's understandable. Recently, a journalist asked the government here how they could also benefit from protective gears given by the government. And I think that the governments in countries that where media houses might not be able to provide this, governments should step in and provide safety gears for journalists that are considered essential services. Yeah.
And Mr. Smith, I would love to direct this question to you. You, from history, I know you covered the bombings that occurred in Nairobi, which was a crisis. This is equally a crisis we are in. Is there any advice you could give budding journalists with regards to how to cover a crisis or a pandemic?
They're very different stories, of course, but the focus that I've had is on accountability, meaning, why were we caught so unprepared? Why have so many people had to die? These are the questions that are common to any of these kinds of crises. But the Nairobi, the African embassy bombings in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi is a very different kind of story than this pandemic. The pandemic is a challenge, as Mr. Abbas says, because it's many of us, myself included, have not covered a lot of science. And so there's a learning curve that has to take place. And I think that it's important for anybody coming to this kind of story to do just an enormous amount of background reading and talking to people before stepping into the field and trying to report authoritatively on the story. So that's an enormous challenge for any journalist, whether you're starting out or you've been doing a lot of coverage. I've done a lot of coverage in the Middle East on issues of terrorism and whatnot, but this is an entirely different animal. I want to say that one of the things that has made this so hard is that governments are using this as an opportunity to crack down on press. They're using it to shut down outlets. They're using it to arrest journalists. China, not only, as we have all learned, suppressed the medical establishment from reporting on what was happening in Wuhan, but at the same time, they started arresting journalists and bloggers. They initiated the toughest restrictions on internet blogging that they have ever had, and that's saying quite a bit because China is quite stringent. Iran has also cracked down on information and arrested journalists. And I think what happened here is that the result was, I don't know the exact numbers, but I have to think that the numbers were much higher coming out of India and Iran, which were the two first hotspots. And it wasn't until we got to Italy, where there was a more transparent treatment of this, that we really saw this thing explode. And I think it led to places like Spain and the UK and the US not being prepared, because they looked at what was happening in China and Iran, and that seemed far away. And the numbers, they were bad.
But Mr. Smith, so I just have to ask you that US America is already initially you are not too much serious about this virus. So you are saying your media is always telling the same thing, that it is just a flu. Your experts are saying the same thing, that it is just a flu. But the numbers are increased now. I think US media is showing something great. I mean, because the conditions are worse right now, as we can see the condition of your America. So yeah, I mean, initially Americans, your media was not even serious about this coronavirus.
Well, I don't think it was the media that was, some media repeated what was being said by some officials, that this was just a flu. And they said, look, we have 30 to 70,000 people die in a flu season. We've had 50,000 people die in America, 53,000 or 52,000 in a month. That's not an ordinary flu season. The president was initially saying this was a flu, but I wouldn't put that on the media, except that media that decides to parrot what some of this misinformation, and that does exist. But I think generally Americans looked at what was happening, and until they saw the numbers in Italy, I don't think they really woke up to this. I mean, we all saw Wuhan building a hospital in 5 or 7 days. That got everybody's attention. I mean,
yeah,
what's that about? But the numbers coming out of there and in Iran, I think were repressed. And so a lot of people were not quite alert or believe it.
Satisfied with it. Actually, we even don't know what is the exact number of patients at China. In fact, I mean, we all are we all also want to know that what is the exact numbers who are dead, who are having that just because of coronavirus.
Okay, now before we go there, Mr. Smith, I wish to know this. You mentioned China, you mentioned the government suppressing the press and, exploding it on the press. Now, don't you sometimes feel like when you look at the news that due to coverage of this pandemic, the media and journalists have turned into some sort of conveyor belt for governments? Our work is just to inform. The government has said these are the numbers. I mean, how are we going to interrogate numbers and trust governments blindly? Help me understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is that many people in government are ducking interviews with the media. Many people are in the Trump administration or in China for sure, in other countries, are not coming forward to speak and answer the hard questions that we in the media should be asking on behalf of our viewers and readers. So that lack of access to those who are accountable for addressing the situation has been tough. Now, there have been some of the medical advisors, the public health officials in the US have spent a lot of time. In fact, I don't know how much sleep Dr. Fauci is getting these days, but he has made himself quite available to a lot of the media and is answering questions. But you're right, there's media that doesn't know quite what to do other than to repeat what they're being told. We have to do better than that. I mean, that's no excuse. We have to be pressing hard to demand those in positions of power to speak to us. It's a challenge.
Thank you so much. Madam Wanaisha Chizuga, are you with us? Madam Wanaisha? Jennifer, is Madam Wanaisha with us?
She's there, but I think her sound still has a problem.
Okay.
Send me her number so I can call her.
Okay, thank you. Now, this question, I would like you to go to Dr. Raul. Dr. Raul, as journalists, are we causing fear or are we adding to the solution of the problem? That is what I call justice. In fact, justice to me is providing solutions in the event of this pandemic. Are we doing that?
Yes, we talk about the Indian television. The journalists are like a cheerleaders in the studio rooms. They are shouting, panelists are there. I think they should go to the ground, so if they can get some
They
important.
are going.
Ruchika, please, I beg your pardon. Madam Ruchika, raise your hand if you want to talk. Do not interrupt, kindly. Mr. Raul? Mr. Raul, are you there?
Yes.
Yes. You are saying?
Yes. Yeah. So I think they should go to the ground, so they can get good stories related to COVID-19, and some policemen's sticks is not important. The reporter's pen is always very important. So in India, you see there are so many videos on the Facebook. Policemen are beating the people. So I feel reporter's pen is plays a very important role during this kind of a pandemic situation. And regarding the data, Mr. Smith was saying, in Supreme Court ordered our media houses, Supreme Court Chief Justice Bobde, yes, on Tuesday said that media should refer the official data which government they have created the portal. Supreme Court Bobde said on Tuesday. So we can't go for a interrogation or something. So this is what I feel that in India, so we have to regarding COVID-19 patients, we have to refer the official website of Government of India, which created them.
Thank you very much. Mr. Abbas, in your reaction, do you think digital aspect of journalism is doing a better job? Because that's where all the updates start from. Things happen on social media nowadays before they hit the news bulletins and in prime time.
I mean, I don't know how exactly to answer that question, but I think that they are both pros and cons of digital platforms. One, for journalists, I think it's it has a lot of advantages for journalists. Theoretically, you can break news, you can find all your sources there, and I think a lot of information is going on. But also we know that it's the space that is provided the fertile ground for fake news and misinformation, because everyone right now has a mobile phone and they can sit wherever they are. They can edit information that has been produced by someone, and you are seeing a lot of photoshopping. You're seeing a lot of videos that are not real, but they are being shared online. So it has pros and cons. I think that definitely there is more work to be done by journalists right now in terms of using those platforms to fight against fake news and to make sure that their voices are heard and their reports are shared to reach all the audiences where fake news might also be reaching, so that at least we have an equal ground. So it's the time, it's the digital time. You can't run away from that. It's the virus space. The question is, how effective are we using those platforms to make sure that they are playing a role towards containing fake news, but also helping us share information to contain the virus? That would be
Okay,
my your
thank you.
question.
Thank you so much.
Very well.
Madam Ruchika Jain, as a digital content creator, how are you navigating your videos and making sure that you're updating us with very correct and timely information that is factual? Madam Ruchika, are you there?
Microphone is off.
Okay. Madam Ruchika?
Yeah, I can hear. Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of digital content, what we are doing, we are just engaging people to saying that stay at home. But there are core reporters who are working on ground. If we talk about our city's information, as Rahul said to us that reporters are not going on ground, but the reality is that if we talk the example of Barkha Dutt, she is taking interviews on street, she is taking interviews on the tribal areas, and she's taking the story of that particular area, and the people are going there and helping them, those who are not affording the thing. So that media is.
Madam Jain, back to the question. The question I asked you is, as a content creator,
Yeah.
what are you doing differently to ensure that the public is consuming videos that are factual, information that is truthful and timely?
Okay, so yeah, we are creating the small videos upon this topic, that why you should you should not follow the WhatsApp University messages, the fake news. First of all, you have to find out that which newspaper or news channel is giving the exact information to you, and we are making them aware that like why you should not go for the unwanted fake news. We are awareing them that you just stay at home, and we are coming with the celebrities on live with you. So yeah, we are just engaging them, and we are requesting them, we are telling them that you stay at home. People are there, reporters are there who are creating content for us. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Smith, just now on the same one, now that she's mentioned content, I remembered I was reading an article this week in The Guardian, and the writer was arguing that experts, in fact, I noted it down in my notebook, that experts and public health officials have revised their numerous opinions, advice, and recommendations, as it is now more difficult for the public to trust us as media. So basically, as COVID-19 has been evolving and taking a new turn each and every time, we find that medical and health experts are changing their stand on the opinions they gave previously. How do we navigate this? Because some of the audience gets confused in between.
I think it's because the medical establishment is trying to figure this out. This is a very mysterious virus. I mean, clearly, the stay-at-home orders, the social distancing message works, but even on that, we have a great bit of disagreement as to how much of a lockdown, when we should begin to open up, and you get all sorts of different opinions going on. It reflects the confusion in the medical establishment. I mean, there was a notion, for instance, that was out there that we were going to have it would take a year to 18 months to have a vaccine. Now they're saying that that's optimistic, that it can take as much as 8 to 10 years. We may never have a vaccine. Navigating this is difficult because the medical establishment is not in full agreement over just what we're dealing with. We don't know if antibodies tests will work. We don't know if you can get it a second time. There's just a tremendous amount of confusion in the medical establishment over just what the nature of the virus is and how best to go about handling the pandemic.
So how do we execute our reportage to ensure that the many large number of public that is depending on us does not get caught up in the confusion and in the mix-up?
Well, I think what the smartest thing to do in all cases like this is to be very upfront with what we don't know, by admitting what we don't know. And when you have one medical expert saying one thing, it's important to look around and make sure that's either the consensus view, and therefore that's the view that you should propagate on your news media, or if not the consensus view, that you have opposing views. And we shouldn't be afraid of the confusion here. And we should be very upfront with our audiences, with our readers, that there are open questions and that we don't know everything here. And if people are looking for a clear answer, well, I'm sorry, we can't always deliver that. We sometimes have to steep people in the controversy and in the debate.
Very well understood. Thank you very much. Jennifer, is Madam Mwanaisha ready?
I'm trying to help her to set up, not yet. I'm still trying to set up. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Now, we've looked at the aspect of the journalists reporting, and now the big challenge comes within dealing with government. I would like us to go back there, because many people, I can see some guys who are asking questions. Okay, guys, remember we'll be able to sample and also ask all these questions as we continue, and just get the panelists to answer the questions, and then you'll get your feedback. So don't worry. But before we get there, I wish to ask Mr. Raul Rathore, is there a manual as a journalism lecturer? Do we have a manual to covering a pandemic?
Right now, we don't have any manual for the pandemic. Actually, from the 15 March, we are at home, and we are not going to the colleges. But my student sometimes ask, sir, what will be our future after the COVID-19? So many journalists are losing jobs, and as an academician, there is a new session is going to start, and students are worried that where will we go after this situation, where we will get job, and some new student also ask that how we will get admission, should we take admission in the journalism courses? So they are worried. So we are creating some webinar, we are managing through the webinar and asking them to join that, and we are giving some solutions. And that's what as a academician we are worried.
Now you've raised a very important issue, and goes with the coverage of education. Remember, this pandemic also affects children who are off school right now. How are you, as a lecturer who's currently using digital platforms to cover up lessons, to cover up syllabus? How are you navigating? What is the experience?
We are using Zoom app. We are teaching a student daily through this Zoom app, and we are also providing we are also using Telegram. We are giving them notes through the PDF files, and also we are giving them assignments on daily basis, and we discuss on personally on the phone, so we can clarify all the issues.
That is. Do you think the students prefer it as compared to the regular classroom experience?
Yeah, some students are not comfortable with the technology. They don't use Zoom app. They are not able to download. There are network issues also in their far villages. People who left the city, they are from far villages, who comes from the far villages. So then there are some networking problem in their villages, so they are not able to connect. But what I feel, there is no connection between teacher and students in digital platform. What I feel, while in classroom, it is a better experience face to face, and it feels good. And this is what I feel.
So, are we as journalists in your country, in India, have you seen journalists doing stories on education and children and telling the government, you know what, it is not the same experience? Have you seen that?
On education story nowadays, the newspaper is filled with the COVID-19 stories.
Yes.
Some stories are there. Their examinations, all the universities and schools boards are worried about the upcoming examination, that how they will conduct, and they have to hire big spaces for maintaining the social distancing. Or they are also working on the digital platform, that they can take exam from the home. They are creating so many softwares they are working on. Let's see what happens next.
Okay, sir. But don't you think that the goal is to finish exam but not education?
Yeah, education is goal is to finish exam. Yeah, you are right. But education on digital platform, I have earlier told you, it is I don't think it's a good option. A face-to-face interaction of student and teacher is very important. It happens in classroom only.
Okay, Mr. Mpindi Abbas, do you have anything to add? I can see your hand is up.
Yes, I was going to say that it's challenging to, of course, give lessons or conduct classes online. But I think that it highly depends, it's calling for changing of the way we teach. So the interaction between the teacher and the student has to change. Unfortunately, we didn't plan for this. So the traditional teacher is going to struggle to provide lessons on screen. So that's why they have to adopt new methods of offering lessons. So it has to be more visual, more interesting, more fun, more engaging. There are different tools online that can be used, that can be incorporated into the sessions, so that the student is really, really engaged, because your attention span on the online is very limited. That's all I wanted to
Yes.
add.
Okay. But now, sorry, I beg your pardon. The issue size in Uganda, how many stories have we seen that are focusing on children, on what children are going through in terms of education? Some of them are with their parents who don't care about them, for example. Some of them are with, people who leave them at the mercies of house girls. I've seen reports of crimes and economic distress among, there's a UN report last week that was saying around 28 million kids will be poorer by the time COVID-19 ends. So are we as journalists prioritizing these kids? We know they are not the direct center of attention when it comes to COVID-19, but are we remembering that they exist?
I think sometimes we want to overwhelm the media by making sure they cover each and everything deeply, and I think here in Uganda I've seen stories on the impact of COVID on children. I've seen stories on parenting. I've seen stories on education. I've seen that, like, education has been really, really documented. Is it deep enough? Is it enough? Maybe not. Maybe they could do more. But I think we have done a good job covering education here in Uganda through journalists. There's many stories they have to cover. Just imagine the landscape. You have to look at reproductive health now. You have to look at, how HIV patients are struggling to get their ARVs on a daily because they can't move. You have to look at the business side. You have to look at the governance side. You have to look at, security. Each and every story must be told and exhausted. And unfortunately, most of our media houses don't have the resources to do all these stories and exhaust them. And that's why, you know, digital and freelance journalists would come in handy there to be able to cover all those other stories. But do they have a bigger platform? No. So we can commend what the journalists have done. Definitely there are areas and that need to be improved, especially on reporting about special cases like children, refugees, people with disabilities. I've seen like maybe probably 1 or 2 stories on people with disabilities. But even organizations that are working on those issues have to be standing out right now to make sure that their voices are getting into the media space, because journalists are honestly overwhelmed right now.
Okay. Madam Ruchika Jain, I can see your hand is up.
Yeah.
Ruchika,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so in terms of education, I guess if as Mr. Abbas said that they are doing amazing at Uganda in terms of education, but I just want to reply Mr. Rahul, who said this is very difficult to engage students on Zoom app or applications, or internet work is not working. But I would like to tell you that there are so many social media platforms that students are using, and if they can use social media platforms for their fun, so why can't they use the education application, or they can't use the video calling app? I mean, it is up to us that how can we make the session more interesting online, how we can engage them in terms of education. So yeah, it will not be as difficult. Yes, I understand that the classroom education is more powerful, but if we talk about the online, because the crises are like that, then we cannot do anything. We just have to focus that students, the syllabus, or they have to have a good knowledge. So
Now,
yeah.
yes, Madam Ruchika, now I have a question for you. As a blogger, as a digital content creator, have you focused your content to tell stories about the street families that no one is talking about in India? The little children in villages.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So
have you
if I
focused?
talk about so we are more about we are giving the food to them. So basic necessity for them is now the food thing. And yes, I understand that till 5th class students are not studying because it's a vacation for them. And after like from 6th class to 12th standard, they are working on this video calling or education, or
Okay.
Zoom application.
Madam Ruchika, I don't believe you understood my question. I'm saying, as a journalist and a digital content creator, are you doing stories and highlighting what COVID-19, the impact COVID-19 is having on street families, on children in India, on the low-income families? Are you focusing your content there?
Yeah. So I'm telling you that if we are providing the food at the same time, we are making them understand that you don't have to go outside. We are on streets, on small areas where there is nothing is going to happen. I mean, there is no food, nothing, no necessary things are there. So we are going as a social worker, as a reporter, we are going and we are covering the little bit stories that we don't want to cover their faces just because of they are facing issues. We are helping them, no doubt, we are helping them at all, but we are not in that phase that we have to cover their story, or we need to show to people that okay, they can't afford the food. So we are helping them, that's it, and we are making them aware, we are educating them that they don't go outside. We are coming here for you, to educate you, to feeding you. So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Smith, back to you with a very easy but difficult question, I believe. How can we, as media, play a role in containing COVID-19 and potentially saving lives?
Well, I guess the answer to that is doing what we do best, which is to tell the truth, or at least when we are doing our job correctly, we're telling the truth. And so it is an easy question. If we tell the truth about what needs to happen. We tell the truth as best we know it about the pandemic and what we know about the virus itself, then we're helping people. And that's the role we should play. We should also play a role, as I said before, in holding officials, public health policy experts, as well as politicians accountable for the decisions they make. There's, in the United States, it's a painful process watching how the virus has become a political football. And you know, we really need, as journalists, to be cutting through that and getting people to tell the truth as best we can do it. So that's the role that we should play. I wanted to add to this issue, if I may, on this issue of the use of Zoom and other social media platforms. I mean, we are so addicted, all of us, to these platforms.
Yes.
We're using it today, I hope to good effect. But I'm old enough to say that my mother lived through the pandemic of 1918. When she was a 13-year-old girl, she was stricken with the Spanish flu, I guess they called it. And she wrote a memoir, and I was reading it about a month ago. And in it, she talked about how the school identified what the students would need in order to keep up with their studies. They packaged up assignments on a weekly basis and sent them home with the students, and the students, you know, did their work under their parents' guidance. They didn't have social media. I think social media can be used, but it's not absolutely necessary. And I just thought I'd share that we got through 1918 without Zoom.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very something to think about. Now, sir, I'll still go back. There seems to be a number of people who are not satisfied with your with our earlier discussion on they critically want to understand what is breaking news and what is developing news. That in many scenarios, journalists refer to breaking news as developing stories. So when do we regard a news story as a breaking news item? And when do we regard it as a developing story?
Is that for me to answer?
Yes, sir.
Well, I wish I had a clear answer. Again, I think the terms have been so abused, but I mean, I consider breaking news when something is totally new. I mean, it is a pivot point, but I would find breaking news to be a rare event, and it's not being promoted like that. It's being used to get your attention for, you know, for people to click. It's like clickbait, and developing is what we're seeing with the pandemic on a sort of a daily basis as we roll forward. But I would reserve breaking for something qualitatively different, such as the discovery of a vaccine, discovery of on some factual basis, not some speculation here or there, or some statement from a politician or whatnot, but something concrete that changes the game. That's rare.
Thank you very much.
I hope that helps.
Thank you. Yes, a lot. It helped a lot. And now I can see Mr. Raulas is having quite a number of technical issues. But just as we go through our topic of discussion today, which is focusing on journalists and the way they're covering COVID-19 2019. Are they doing justice to those stories? Some may wonder, what is justice? And as we have said, are we providing solutions? Because at the end of the day, what is journalism if we are not adding value to society and providing solutions? So, Mr. Mpindi Abbas, you run an organization with young journalists whom you work with. What are you guys doing differently to empower young journalists, especially during this COVID-19 situation?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. So we, at the beginning of this year, we had our third fellowship program, And that program brings together 26 young journalists from around 12 universities. They go through multimedia journalism, and it's a physical meetup. But because of COVID, we can't meet anymore. So we had to pivot our work towards responding to the, to COVID-19. And some of the things they've been able to do so far is translating prevention messages into local languages, because we know that most of the messages are in English and in other major local languages. We have over 40 languages in Uganda, and most of the fellows we have come from those communities. So they are the best agents to translate messages. So they produced messages that are in audio format. We created a website, and we are trying to push these messages to community media to make sure that they are aired in different communities. We've also put in place an online radio station, which was meant to help them in training, but now we are pivoting it to providing COVID information. What we've done is ask the fellows in their communities to do stories on COVID, on the implication of lockdowns to their communities, to all these deeper issues we are talking about. And they are in essence standing in as a reserve force for the mainstream journalists that are at the front lines right now. In terms of, you were talking a lot about solutions, and one of the things we have been also sharing with them is solutions journalism. So we are part of the network of Solutions Journalism Network, and we provide that training. So one of the things that is probably missing in the conversation right now is the coverage of responses to COVID in the different communities. Some ideas that are being done at community levels, at government, national levels, family levels, that could ideally be documented and replicated in all other communities around the world. So I think that is still limited. And if there was anything that I would urge, besides of course investigating deeply some of the numbers or other things that need to be investigated by our journalists, we also need to see the stories of solutions, of responses that have evidence of working, rather than seeing speculations running here and there, or just seeing the negative stories throughout. Because we know that at the end of the day, COVID is here, but people need hope to feel that there's something being done about it, inevitably. So what is government doing? What are the NGOs doing? What are the people doing in their communities? How are, for example, students coping now in their communities? How are schools changing the way they're educating to new platforms? And how are those platforms working for them? How are people innovating new ways of washing hands in their communities? So those innovations need to be highlighted as well. And
Thank you.
our
Yes.
fellows are doing some of that work.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Mr. I would like to get back to Mr.
Your sound, Leon.
Okay, yes. I wish to get back to Mr. Smith for a while. And Mr. Smith, you produce I think you produce the best documentaries in the world I've ever seen. I must appreciate that, sir. So as a correspondent and a content producer for Frontline PBS, I just want to know, what would be your advice to freelance journalists or independent journalists like myself? How do we survive a pandemic when we have many people relying on us to tell these stories, and these stories that are going to change lives? How do we navigate that?
Well, I think there's great opportunities right now because of the technologies that we have. In mid-March, I returned from the Middle East to cover this story. And ironically, I was pulled out of the Middle East because my insurance company was worried that I was in danger of contracting COVID-19. But of course, I came home to New York City. And since then I went into quarantine, but I was able to continue to report because I could use the internet and Skype or Zoom interviews and call people all over the world. So I began calling people in China, in South Korea, in Iran, in Italy, in the UK, in the US, and I was able to do all this from my kitchen table. So there's great opportunities for people to dig into this story and report. And I got to say, I'm not missing too much having to get on airplanes and fly places and do all of that kind of logistical work. So I've felt like I've been able to dig into this story in a way, like I said, from where I'm living now, and do quite a bit of work.
Okay, thank you very much. Wow, that is very interesting from that perspective. And I wish to go back to Madam Ruchika. Madam Ruchika, what is India doing differently?
Yes.
Covering COVID-19 stories. What is India doing differently?
I cannot hear you.
As a journalist, I'm asking, what is India doing differently with regard to coverage of COVID-19? How is India doing things different?
Okay. Okay. So basically, Indian media has taken very small steps, which is doing by people, by journalists, by the people who are social workers, by NGOs. So yes, India is actually the very best thing. What is done by India is that in very early stage, India came to know that we have to do this lockdown. So firstly, we have done the 21 days lockdown, then 19 days lockdown. And I don't know, according to the situation, maybe it will be increased. But due to this lockdown, as we have, we have aware before the situation gets worse. So the thing is that we are not having big numbers of corona patients. So if we talk about the numbers, we are having the 24,500 to 506 corona patients right now, and the recovery of patients are pretty good, in fact. And the thing, yes, we are facing little bit issues as well, that in terms of unemployment, in terms of food. So yeah, there are people who are surviving with it, but yeah, we are having NGOs, so they are doing pretty well. And if we talk about in terms of journalism, so journalists are taking that story. So if I
Hello, is Madam with us? I think we've lost her. Madam Ruchika is with us? Okay, Jennifer, did she
No,
freeze?
she's not. I think she's I think her net or something. Yeah.
And her net has
Yes.
frozen. Now, today has been a very interesting day, and we're just winding up on the discussion. If you've joined us now, I see quite a number of messages there. Madam Mildred from the BBC, shout out to you. I can see you are with us, and few other guys. Who is this? Penina. Quite a number of few other guys who are tuned in from wherever they are. And I just wish to go back to the very essence of journalism: to inform, to educate, to entertain. Now save the entertainment part from it. What is the way forward, looking forward, post-coronavirus?
The entertainment part is very important.
No, save the entertainment part. That's why I'm saying we have to fix the economy first before we get entertained, you see. So how are we going to actually restart? For example, India right now is about to restart itself from the lockdown, How do we restart the economy as journalists? How do we tell those stories? What do we capture most? And what do we prioritize? Do you want to go first, bro? What do we prioritize?
Oh, me?
Yes,
Uh,
yes, of course.
Okay, so I think that it's important for newsrooms to take a stand and begin preparing for post-COVID and say, if the world decides to open, if countries and governments decide to open the economies back, what is the priority that they need to be sharing with the world or with the public? What role can we play in that process? So I think that it's very clear that there can be resurgence, or people who have been infected can come back into the public and infect other people. So you are not yet sure. So how do we continue to provide prevention information so that we continue to make sure that the public is aware of that challenge and knows that as the economy is open, as I go back out there to do my work, I have to be extra careful. And that can be new messaging, new campaigns that we can do so that we're saying we will face this virus, face off with it, but make sure that we are very prepared. So I think that has to be in the plan of any media house, that if opens up, this is our plan as a media company. And also protecting journalists is very important in that process, to make sure that we're not going to throw our journalists in the heat of, in the thick of things. They should be able to be protected as we get into that space. So
Okay.
I don't know, okay.
Thank you.
Uh,
I'm very much satisfied.
and
You
and maybe one other thing, maybe one other
Yes,
thing.
yes.
Again, I am you said the entertainment part can be left out, but I wanted to emphasize that right now more than ever, people are in lockdowns. They are benefiting a lot from music shows or even entertainment, or they need a
Yes.
moment to laugh and
Yes.
how
Yes,
can
yes.
how can we
I
how can we
I
pivot? Just one point. How can we
yes.
pivot, for example, uh, daily programmings, evening programmings, or night programmings on TV to provide people live workouts, live parties,
Yes.
so that at least there is that connection with the media house, that we still are with you even when you're going through this pandemic, and we will not leave, and we'll make sure you are informed, you are educated, but most importantly, you're also entertained for your own mental health and for your own fun, and so that you can keep smiling wherever you are.
I do not dispute that, sir, but allow me to speak as a Kenyan. You see, the one problem we have in Kenya is that we have a talent of making jokes and entertainment and fun out of very serious situations that we forget our objective. And that's why I said we are a bit toned down on the entertainment part. You get where I'm coming from? Because
I hear
whenever
you.
we are having, yes, whenever, and it's not Kenya alone. Just look on social media. Whenever we address serious issues, corruption, and look at what was what Mr. Smith highlighted was happening in Saudi Arabia with the Jamal Khashoggi incident, you'll see people actually trying to look for humor out of it. And now we deviate. It is a problem we have thanks to digital disruption, which will also have me believe that sometimes I feel it is also healthy for journalists to keep off social media, because some of us are always on Twitter the whole day, responding to XY, defending media house XY, countering government and politicians on social media the whole day. We forget to go on ground and do stories. We forget to spot check.
Yeah.
And I think this moment needs that.
Yes, I totally agree with you. I think the other important aspect right now is how do we make the entertainment bit I'm referring to is how do we make important information? How do we provide important information to people in an interesting and entertaining way?
Entertaining way, yes.
How do we debunk fake news in still a fun way, so that people are able to, you see, when you look at shows like the one of Trevor Noah, you get the information, but you're still entertained and you want to keep watching. So that's maybe also the content and how it's packaged for people in this time Because at a certain point, I was really tired, and I'm still tired of watching news on TV, because at a certain point, I was getting really, really this kind of depression that the only thing I come to see are numbers. And every time you come to watch, you see numbers are going up. Now, 190 people. When you look at that and you imagine and you say, wait a minute, that could be like 5 universities in my country. And when you put that together, then it creates kind of depression, and then you tune out of TV. And whereas when content is packaged in a comforting way, even if it's hard content, you are entertained, but you also feel and empathize with the situation. That's all I wanted to say. Martin, I think, had something to jump in and also share.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
was gonna say, I mean, as a maker of documentary films, I think that being entertaining in delivering information is extremely important. It's not always that entertainment has to be fun. It can be, it can be tense, but it can be like a drama. But it has to be done in an intelligent and fresh way, so that, like you say, the news just rambles on all day long and becomes sort of mind-numbing and, as you say, depressing. So I think entertainment, if you're not holding people's attention, then what's the point?
Yes.
And I think that these news loops that are going on all day long have a purpose for people to dip in and get a fix on where things are. But I think we all need to be thinking creatively about how to deliver information in a way that people are going to be compelled, either because it's fun or because it's smart and fresh, and it may be extremely serious, but it's done in such a way that you're engaged and compelled to stay with it and to learn. So entertainment, in that sense, is extremely important element of what we do.
Yes, and just I have another question for you. With your experience, I'm sure you've covered wars, you've covered, bombings and all those. How do you get out of it as a journalist and still remain sane?
Maybe
For example,
concerts too.
Yeah.
Do I? What do you say?
Maybe concerts as well.
I don't know that I'm sane from doing all this. I don't know. I can't make that claim. People have to judge. I mean, all these stories are taxing in some way, but at the same time, all of us here are privileged to be able to do the work we do, and to have, as we say, a front row seat on history in the making, and be able to have that privilege of conveying this information and having public trust to do that fairly and honestly. So, or at least those of us who do our job correctly, I like to think are have earned.
Pardon me, sir. Let me put it like this. Using myself as an example. The whole of this week, there are about 700 to 800 Kenyan patients who had come to seek treatment in India, and they are stuck because India is under total lockdown. The airports were shut down. They couldn't travel. Some have no food. Some had come for surgeries. They're on medication. They cannot eat. Some have died. The government is still trying to get them out. There's that conversation which is going. So you find that I've spoken to people who are experiencing tremendous amounts of pain. Sometimes I check my social media after I've done a story and it's been published, and people are telling me, you know what, you need to talk to someone. This is too painful. You need to talk to. So how do we as journalists ensure also that we do not become a victim of our work?
I think we grow a thicker skin over time, but at the same time try to remain sensitive to the suffering that of the people that we're covering. But I sympathize. I've seen some of your work out of India recently, and it's tremendously painful what's going on. How do we? I'm not sure how to answer that question other than. That as a journalist, you have to find the balance between exploring and conveying people's pain at the same time not becoming overwhelmed by it. When you do become overwhelmed by it, you have to take a break. You have to you have to go somewhere and sit by a river and heal.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, I would love us to close, and to start us off, I would like Madam Ruchika Jain to just give us a parting shot, her final words. Madam Ruchika, are you there?
Microphone is off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Your final words as we wind up.
Yeah, so I think being, the part of journalism, we all should have to take the true stories towards people. That can change the scenario, what we are seeing. We actually have to focus on as a journalist, what we have been learned, that we have to give the news, or we have to, pursue the content which can be very useful for people, and it will be very helpful for those people who are suffering a lot from COVID-19, or who are suffering from food or stay. Or I think being journalist or being a digital content creator, I think we can help them being a mediator. We are nothing. We are just a mediator, and we have to play our role best, so that we can help the whole humanity. And yeah, I would like to give a very big thank you to you, Leon, Leon, you have taken that step to put that information, or put to discussion with all of from Abbas, from Mr. Smith. So yeah, it's really great to hear both of you. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Mr. Abbas?
You want my final remarks?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. No, first and foremost, thank you so much for putting this together. You and Jennifer, an incredible job. And I think that being on a panel with Martin Smith is an honor. And then meeting Richka and the others, that's for me an honor. I think that I would say this is the best time to be a journalist. More than ever now, I think the world and more the governments are realizing. They knew it before. That's why maybe they crack our freedom. But now it's really, really important to see how, in some cases, the interaction is happening. And for me, I think the media, like we started saying, we've done a good job. There's a lot of challenges that need to be dealt with, that also Smith highlighted, in terms of politicizing stories and using, this COVID to fight against one political party against the other, and using the media to come into that space. And media, so media needs to just be careful. Journalists need to be careful. I still would love to say it's important for us to think about solutions and think about how we can cover those so that people can see what's happening. I'm very sure we'll get out of this one story at a time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, and Mr. Smith, before you take over, I just want to make a request. I hope you're working on a nice documentary about Dr. Tedros, China. I would really love to watch what is happening. We need to know. You need to tell us.
Yeah, if I can.
Yes.
So you want my final words?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, Leon, thank you, and to you, Jennifer, too, for organizing this. And it's a privilege also, I agree, to be on with Ruchika and Mpindi. And pardon me if I butcher your names, your pronunciation.
It's okay.
I came on here looking forward to learning from you, and I have, and so I appreciate that. I'll just go on a personal note. I think when 9/11 happened, I was able to do a string of reports for PBS Frontline on the roots of Al Qaeda, and both. Well, to get into the roots of this, in a way that help people understand. I mean, every time we make a documentary, we take a universe of information and try to make sense of it and try to present it in such a way that you can synthesize and make sense of what's going on. In addition, you investigate and perhaps have new information. But at the very basic level, you're just trying to put together confusing information in a way that makes sense to people. And when there are big stories, that's when there's an opportunity to really help people. And so after 9/11, I felt, as I had never felt before, that I was able to contribute and help people understand a confusing universe of information. And here again, with this, I feel like we're all in a position of great privilege to be able to dive into this. A lot of people are sitting at home, unable to engage with their social networks easily and to make sense of this. We're in a position where we actually can reach out and learn information and put it together, package, curate that information, and help people understand. And that's tremendously satisfying to me as a journalist. And only a few times in my career have I really felt that burning need of the population to understand something better. And this is one of them. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Madam Jennifer. Madam Jennifer, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. I thank you so much, Leon, for this opportunity. And for me, I believe as journalists or storytellers, we have an opportunity during to shape the thinking of so many people. So for us, for example, we run these webinars at least twice every day. We have one on Facebook Live and another one on YouTube. And we have seen people changing. So it is able to make that change to be able to make a difference during this season is what kind of stories are we telling? Are we able to help people think differently, to come up with solutions of their own problems? You know, can we start thinking, triggering people saying, okay, it's happening. We all have a cabin fever, but what can we do in cabin fever? I read the other day a quote, it was going around WhatsApp, that someone, I think in 17 something, the big scientist was quarantined, and during that time they actually developed the theory of I think electricity or something. And for me, that was a challenge. What are we doing with our time? Yes, we are sleeping, we are Netflixing, we are YouTubing. What are we doing? What solutions are we coming up with when we are at home? And it's up to us as storytellers to be able to trigger people to start thinking solutions and to be able to tell those solutions and what people are doing about it. Thank you so much, Leon, for this conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, see you and keep safe. Keep safe.
You too.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.